What's up, guys? And welcome to the Find Your Flow podcast. My name is Mike Graham, and I'm your host and guide as we go on this incredible adventure together. The idea of this podcast is to have conversations with normal, ordinary people like you and I who are living an extraordinary life. And having those conversations of how they live their life in flow and how they found their flow and how they keep flowing and all the flow. But on a serious note, really my goal through this project and these episodes and this podcast is to inspire you as an audience, as a listener, to find your flow, whatever that might mean to you, and then to be brave enough and have the courage to pursue that, because I believe that's one of the most beautiful things we can do in this life. So, with that being said, super excited about today's show. Let's start. Let's find your flow. So this show is all about finding ordinary people that are like normal people, but doing something exceptional in their life. And I have the privilege of meeting such amazing people. And the lady I'm about to introduce is someone who maybe not on the surface seems that ordinary, but is an ordinary individual.
And I'm a lady, okay? I'm a savage. Just so you know.
And she's a savage. We're going to get into that. But super amazing person and doing some incredible things. So Monika, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me in the first place. I feel privileged to be here, like your first episode in person.
Yes. First in person. How long have we known each other? Like 18?
Well, I would never say that it was 18 months because I'm not that accurate, but must have been around 2 years now.
Yeah. I met Monika doing jiu-jitsu, right? Which is
It's not even been 10 minutes, you know. He swore that it's going to be 10 minutes that we bring up jiu-jitsu. It was like 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah. So the rest of this interview is about jiu-jitsu.
So if you're not into jiu-jitsu, you might as well just...
Yeah, you can go, you can leave. But no, we met doing jiu-jitsu, and Monika's a blue belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is incredible. She competes, she wins her tournaments.
Who am I?
We call her the Great Oz. The Great Oz, and she's this person who's had this incredible life of traveling, of doing different careers, recently excelling at her career, bought a van for herself and is traveling around the world and just lives this amazing lifestyle. I mean, Monika, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I mean, other than being the Great Oz.
I mean, you pretty much covered it all, So, yes, I travel, I work. Recently, I started a career in IT and cloud computing. I got a van, which has been like a long-term dream of mine that recently came to fruition. And, I'm about to venture out on this long journey to the Basque Country, for a month with my van, so I'm really excited about it. And, well, a big part of my life is jiu-jitsu, as you said, it's been like a major thing for the last 2 years. And I feel like all good things come to my life through jiu-jitsu.
I was just about to say that. It feels like since I've known you, your life has just evolutionized to a new level of flow, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, like, how's that happened?
Well, first of all, when you told me that we were going to do this episode and you told me it was going to be about flow, I was thinking but what is flow really? Because it's a word that we use so much, but like it's so difficult to actually define it, And, I asked you but what is flow, And you told me, well, I don't know, you tell me you are pure flow to me. And I was like, what does it even mean? And I think in psychology, flow is described as like the state of flow. You enter the state when you do something at a high skill level, but at the same time it's challenging to you, and you do it effortlessly, But I don't think living in the state of flow it's the same. I think when you live in a state of flow, it's like living your life as the most true version of yourself, So it's like getting rid of the limitations and inhibitions that prevent you from being yourself. So it's like flow is just basically you doing you.
You doing you.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
That's flow.
But you have to kind of identify you, right? You have to Like, because obviously we live in a society that tries to dictate who you might
exactly.
be. Or
so
how
these
you
are
think.
the limitations that you need to get rid of, and it takes a lot of self-awareness and questioning, so you need to be, at least that's what I do, I constantly question myself, my actions, my feelings, whenever I feel something or I do something, I ask myself the question like, why did I do it? Why do I feel the way I feel?
Have you always been like that, or has it been something
I think I've always been like that, but as I grow older, I became aware of the fact that I am like this, because at the beginning when you're a kid and when you're
just do it automatically,
right? And then as you start knowing other people and talking to other people, you just realize that not everyone is the same. I felt like I've always been the same. I was born in Poland. I grew up in Poland, which is a very traditional, very conservative place. But I've always felt like there was something more. There was something more.
Even since you were little.
Even since I was a very little kid, I felt like there was something more. Because obviously my family, my circle of friends, the society was always trying to impose something on me. But I've always felt like it can't be it. There must be something more to it. So I've always been like looking for more. And I think the key to knowing yourself is like exposing yourself to as many different people, cultures, situations, good and bad, like the stressful or bad situations can always teach you stuff about yourself as well. And only this way you can actually learn the things that make you flow, that like make you tick, or things that you don't want in your life, and this way, the more you know about yourself, the better you are at navigating your life,
So try as many different things as possible, give it a go. See, because I think you've had quite a varied, even when me and you hang out, we're great friends. Every now and again you tell me a different story of something that you did, right? I think I knew you for like a year and I never knew that you'd been a sailor, right?
That's true.
And then she's a sailor, right? We wouldn't tell you that, right? But then randomly you went, oh yeah, I sailed, right? Yeah. And you get into these experiences that are quite random, like you did CrossFit for a long period of time, and then you stopped doing CrossFit, then you came across Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you started doing Jiu-Jitsu, and so it's all quite different, right? They're quite different, but do you think there's something how does it happen? How do you do these very different things? Because there's nothing, maybe you could say the sport element links them together, right? Yeah. But does that help you find your flow, or is that a change of flow?
I think like the common theme here is just curiosity, just being open, curiosity and openness to different experiences, I try to always approach everything with like a very open mind and have no expectations, because I know that different situations and different experiences can teach you a lot of different things, and you might not know this beforehand. So you can only know it once you start doing the thing, when I feel like everything...
You can only start knowing once you start doing the thing.
The thing.
Write that down.
Right? So, I just approach different situations without any expectations, because I know that all of them have an educational value for me, and they're going to teach me something about myself,
So your almost concept of flow is a pursuit of knowledge, of understanding the world, but also understanding yourself.
Yes, because the better I understand myself, the better I can get at navigating the world, and this is how I can manage better the impact or the influence of other people or the society or any other factors that impact my life, like society, geography, religion, economy, all of these things, and I think about it as being the interior designer of my own room. You know what I mean?
Interior designer of your own room.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right?
I think Monika's here to take over. Monika's here to do a double take now, take over.
Right? So, imagine that you're a room. Right? And like your new room, right? And people start bringing you stuff like decorations to decorate your room. If you just accept everything, your room is gonna be like total chaos, and it's gonna have no personality. It's just gonna make no sense.
Absolutely.
But the more you know yourself, the better you know your taste, what you like, what you don't like. You can just like accept the gifts. You can just like accept other people's gifts, but then you can pick and choose what works for you, what you want actually in your room, right? And this way you can, make yourself as, you know,
Interesting.
the way you want it to be.
Yeah, no,
right?
the way you're describing it makes total
Yes.
sense. I guess the first step of that kind of journey of flowing is understanding yourself.
Right. First, you need to know what you like, but in order to do it, you need to experience a lot of things.
You need to experience a lot of things, right? What if you're a shy, timid? I mean, I'm not particularly, right? I'm just thinking like, what people listening might like. What if you're a shy, timid person who just isn't, for example, perfect. You were probably from an environment where this type of attitude wasn't promoted or wasn't spoken about that much. Yeah. So how did you deal in that kind of environment? Because in that kind of environment, and I know because we've spoken about it, is you're in a bit of a, this is the world, this is what it is, do this, do that, How did you deal and break out of that?
I guess I just did it anyway. I guess I never really cared that much about, I mean, obviously I did, but the older I get, the less I care about the external opinions and the influence of other people. I just focus on my close circle of friends. They're my reference. They're my signposts. You or other close friends. As long as I have your support, that I know that I'm doing good. I don't need the support of my family or the society as a whole.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting. So like having a flow is also maybe having that network of people you've chosen who guide you through life a little bit.
But they're cherry picked.
Yes, because they have to align on certain key ideologies. So
they're my friends because they get me.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. How long have you had this? Like this idea, right? You've had this idea. How long have you had this thought process? Always, or is it something that
it's difficult to point it down because I feel like it's been evolving. It's been evolving for the last 32 years, but I feel like I have always been predisposed to this kind of thinking.
Did you always think you were maybe different or different?
Definitely.
Right? Yeah. Since a little age.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess once in a while. People are just born like that, questioning.
People are just born like the great artists.
I mean, it's that. I don't mean it that way, but just questioning your environment, just questioning why, people choose to live their life this way, because we have so many, imposed limitations or there's fixed ideas in the society, how people should live their lives. And a lot of people just follow that path without ever questioning it, So I always question those things,
It's interesting you say this, because for me, for example, I think we both know, but I have certain views that are maybe, that my work view is very different to the traditional work view. I believe a lot in freedom and being able to, and I think now the world is becoming a lot more like that. But it's interesting. I think, do you remember, I remember, for example, for me, it was 10 when I was 10, 11, when I realized that we live in a financial capital world, and I was like, I need to become good at making money, right? I remember the situation, right? Do you have a moment, maybe when you were little, that you remember realizing what you just said? The concept of the society tries to impose certain rules that maybe you don't want. Do you have a moment where you
No, I don't have this moment, but I've had this feeling or this thought since the very beginning, I've always been a bit of a rebel.
Okay, so you're a bit of a rebel.
Right? Always, since kindergarten, since I can remember, right?
What did you do in kindergarten that made you a rebel? Because I know you told me one story. This is a good story, right? The glue story with the bottle.
But the glue story comes way later.
But it's still very...
But I don't know, in kindergarten, so there was this idea that children should go to sleep after lunch. They should have a nap after lunch. And I just didn't feel like having a nap. So I was like, I'm not gonna nap. So, my mom had to intervene. My mom had to go to the kindergarten, took the headmaster, the headmistress, and explain to them that she doesn't no, she's not gonna nap.
Yeah.
And so I had I got a pass.
Life's funny, right? Because when you're little, you're like, I don't want to nap. When you turn 30 or over, you're like,
want to nap.
Well, I'm like, give me the nap. Give me.
No. So I was allowed to go to the the next grade or whatever because they didn't have to nap anymore, and I was just like messing up with them.
So that was maybe your first experience. That's crazy.
As a rebel.
That's a rebel. You popped out that way. It's like your friends were like, what is it? They're like, it's a rebel.
I think I've always had this thing that if I didn't think that something made sense, I just wouldn't do it. Like, I just wouldn't do things just because someone told me that I should do them.
I think I agree with that. For example, one thing, my dad was like in the military, and the militaries are you do things because someone tells you to do something, right? You obey the orders. Shine your shoes, do your beds, ba, ba, ba.
Well, you're great at that.
Great at that, yes.
Great habits.
Great habits, right? So I have great habits from that. But I think that I realized at a young age that sometimes people give you rules from society that just don't make sense. I remember in boarding school, one thing that I remember, which really triggered it for me, was we used to be in the Marine cadets, right? And we had to do push-ups. If our boots were really shiny and showed the face of the other guy, then he made us do push-ups on the parade ground, which was like a tarmac, right? So I just remember thinking, this is so stupid, But I think it's interesting if you have that programming from when you're a kid, right? Because then it puts you on this flow path of you're always going to be constantly like that, right? You're always going to be constantly challenging what the society is, what the norm is, right?
And I think also a big part of it, of the flow, because like, what is flow essentially? Like even in physics, like flow is movement, right? Like water flows or air flows, right? So I think many times in life, people just get stuck somewhere. They get stuck on an idea, they get stuck on a person, they get stuck at work. Like for the sake of, okay, I made this promise or I took this decision at some point and I need to stick with it no matter what. But I think it's really doing them a disservice, So I think if you want to live your life more in a, let's say, flow state, you need to I reached this obstacle and I cannot push through it and I would just go around.
Well, okay, here's a question that I was thinking about as you were talking about it. If you want to live your life in a flow state, right? So we're maybe assuming, obviously you want to live your life in a flow state. But why? Why would we want to do that? I mean, I personally think you want to do it because I think it makes everything in life so much easier, so much better. You feel so much more connected to everything. Just your entire experience is better, right? But what do you think?
Well, I think it just answered your question. So it makes life more fulfilling, because there is just one life, right? And we just got one. Or unless you're religious, but let's not get down to it. Which I'm not. So you just get one shot at it. So you might as well just live it the way you want to. And also, in the great scheme of things, nothing really matters, So why would you care about what other people think or what the society imposes on you? I mean, obviously we don't live in a bubble, so we live in a society. I mean, unless you want to just fuck off to some remote island and be there by yourself, you have to be part of society. So you still need to consider it a little bit, but it still gives you this wiggle room to live life more or less the way you want it.
So flow is, you're saying that this concept of you understand yourself first, right? You have this concept of the room, which is pretty cool, right? Yes. So you can then be your interior designer.
Right.
You can figure out what palette colors you want, what sofa you want, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You can figure that out. And from there, you design a kind of lifestyle that you want.
Right.
Right? So how have you done that for yourself, for example? Like with your life, how do you think you're in flow? How, because I feel, we've spoken about this, right? I feel that you very much live a life in flow, right?
Yeah.
But how?
I mean, then I would have to tell you my entire life story, which you know pretty much already. But I feel like a big part of it was traveling, so traveling really teaches you a lot of stuff about the outside world, because especially coming from a place like Poland, which is quite hermetic and
hermetic,
closed, sealed.
Hermetic.
Yes.
Write that down. Put that into Google Dictionary.
It's quite sealed. It's very homogeneous. There's not much variety.
No, that would be you.
It's not a homogeneous place, right? I mean, it's a homogeneous place. So it's quite difficult to imagine or respect the variety or the rest of the world, but only once you start traveling you get to experience other cultures, other people, the way they live their ordinary life, because obviously you have the TV and you have stuff like that, so you can get a glimpse of how people live outside, but it's usually you learn about stuff that's not just ordinary life.
You don't get to experience it, you don't get to feel it.
Yeah. So I always, as soon as I started traveling, I always made sure to experience how people live. So I was more interested in how people like live their everyday lives, how they have their breakfast, how they commute to work, rather than about like festivals and holidays, stuff like that. Yeah.
It's a true point actually, because I was very lucky in my life that I've traveled a lot since I was quite young, right? Born in Brazil, lived in the Middle East, went to Thailand a lot to see my dad, and lived in a lot of different places. And so I've seen many different perspectives of life and what the ideal life is and what the ideal flow should be. And I think traveling has been a big part of the unlocking,
Traveling is a big part of it, but also the way you travel. So if you just travel but stay in hotels and don't expose yourself to the local culture, then it's not going to really do anything to you, So you really need to seek the local experiences, talk to the people, but approach it with an open mind, have no expectations. Yeah.
Do you approach most things like this? Because you've done some crazy stuff, right? Like you drove, right? So this girl, right? She drove from Poland, right? You drove from Poland to Morocco.
I did.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How many hours was that?
So I drove from Poland to Spain and then from Spain to Morocco. That was like an insane trip. I'm never doing it again, okay?
I don't think most people would even do it once, let alone again.
I got so traumatized from driving, I didn't even want to drive to Madrid.
But when you do stuff like that, do you feel in flow? Is it like...
I do. Yeah. I try to not overthink things. I try to not get ahead of something. I'm just not, okay, let's just do it. Let's start and then let's see. Because I think that's a trap when you try to overthink things and plan ahead, plan many steps ahead. Because then there's...
Life has a plan as well for you.
Right, but there's so many variables. There are so many unknown factors that you cannot really calculate into your calculation of what you're going to do. So why would you even bother?
It's an impossible calculation to make because you don't know what you're calculating for what you're calculating. You just don't have a fucking clue about anything actually.
So just do it.
Yeah.
Try not to get killed or raped or
Okay, got that? Those are the 2 tries not to do.
Survival
tips by Monika. Very important.
Yes, but other than that, you can do whatever you fucking want.
YOLO. Do whatever you fucking want. That's cool. So now, what do you think are some of so your life now is very much in flow, right? You've kind of, how do you feel? How do you feel?
I think it comes and goes like waves, you cannot always be on top of it, on top of the things, it's like the surfer mentality that we spoke of some time ago, right?
Yeah.
So, a big part of surfing is I'm not a pro surfer, I surfed a few times, right? But
she's not doing tournaments yet. Give her 6 months, she'll be doing tournaments.
Right, so a big part of it is waiting for the wave to come, but it's part of the thing, So I think in life it's the same thing. You cannot expect to always be super enthusiastic and super in flow and everything working out really well for you. But if you accept this as part of the big thing, then the whole experience is gonna be way easier. So if I expect to be always really high and then when I'm not, I'm gonna get frustrated. I'm gonna be what's going on? But if I expect these ups and downs to occur, then I can just wait. I can just wait through the downs and then really appreciate the ups. Even though I know they're gonna finish, but I'm just gonna really enjoy them. While they last. Yeah. So it's it comes and goes. Did
you have something that helped you to learn this? Because this sounds exactly like something that we would learn in jiu-jitsu. We have to bring jiu-jitsu into this, guys. I'm sorry. For the fans, this is your os. But because that sounds like a concept. You, for example, this would be so interesting, I think. to share with the audience. Obviously, you're female. You came into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a very male-dominated environment, right? And we used to be part of the same. We used to be part of the same
my
gym.
jaw is like already clenching because he's mentioning the topic.
Yes, I'm about to get guillotined. I'm taking a risk. But but you started doing Jiu-Jitsu, and it's a very different environment, right? No, it shouldn't be. But it is. Let's just deal with it. It is, especially that, the gym where we started, right? You were probably sometimes the only girl, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal in that kind of environment? How do you approach it? How do you flow through that? Because, how do you do it?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it's not very easy, but I think I am just moving with my love for Jiu-Jitsu. There's obviously there are days that it is more difficult. I'm getting more frustrated because the thing is, like you said, there's very few girls in academies, so very often I'm like the only one, or the 2 or 3, but we're still in the minority. And that, so it's just obvious that we're gonna get tossed around because guys are bigger, stronger, and blah blah. And then I go to an environment where there's just girls, and I feel like I'm actually doing okay. So this is boosting my ego, and I feel like the experiences I have with girls are like my fuel to survive through the times where I'm just getting tossed around by guys. Because I remember I'm like, okay, it's not me being bad at Jiu-Jitsu. It's just like the context is different.
Yeah. Do you think, so that's an interesting point. Do you think that sometimes in life people go through a change of flow like that, because Jiu-Jitsu, you might think Jiu-Jitsu, if you don't know what Jiu-Jitsu is, go Google it. But, it's like, otherwise it would take forever to explain it on here. But I think, there is a difference, right? Between doing Jiu-Jitsu with girls, doing Jiu-Jitsu with guys, even doing gi, doing no gi. There is a difference, right? But I feel that Jiu-Jitsu for me has had a lot of impact in my life in this sense, right? Yeah. Like how to deal with pressure, for example, like if I'm in a bad position in Jiu-Jitsu, I take my time, I think about what my plan's going to be. And that's translated into my life. Like if I get into a bad situation, I think about it and I make my plan, right? But what about you? Do you think Jiu-Jitsu has been, I guess the question is, what do you think has been the catalyst for you to start living a life? I know you mentioned there wasn't anything, but I feel for me, Jiu-Jitsu was a huge, huge opener.
I mean, obviously Jiu-Jitsu helped me in many ways, and I see the benefits of Jiu-Jitsu spilling over to my everyday life.
Work,
yes, but also dealing with stress in my personal life, just dealing with difficult situations, because Jiu-Jitsu is like the perfect playground, like sandbox, because you are there in difficult situations, but it's still like a safe environment, because nothing is really happening. It's not like it's something life-changing for you. It's not like, then I bring this attitude to my everyday life, and then at work or anywhere else, when I'm in a stressful situation, I'm like, okay, I can survive. It's not gonna last forever, because in Jiu-Jitsu the round lasts 5 or 6 minutes, and even if it's like really difficult, that it's gonna finish in 3-4 minutes, whatever. So I bring the same mindset to life, to work, and it's great, because I found myself in some situations that I wasn't enjoying because they were stressful or something, and having this Jiu-Jitsu mindset that they're gonna finish soon. It was making it much easier for me.
It's not going to last forever. Knee on belly, the suffering, whatever, the guillotine doesn't last forever.
And also, I, like you mentioned, I used to do CrossFit some time ago, and that was really difficult. Like sometimes CrossFit can be really taxing on your mind when you're doing it. And then I did Jiu-Jitsu, and some time ago I went back to CrossFit briefly. And it was so easy, compared to Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, you were telling me,
It was so easy, because I was like, okay, nobody's choking me out, so we're safe.
No one's choking you out, it's all good.
Safe.
Just do it.
Right? And I feel like Jiu-Jitsu is really making you way mentally stronger. Yeah.
Do you think that,
especially when you compete.
Yeah, especially when you compete. I think with you, one thing that's very admirable.
Yes.
Admirable. Right. I think one thing with you that's very admirable is your ability to live, I feel, in the last year, you've really blossomed into your authentic self, right? Like you got a new job, you got promoted to blue belt, which is a big fucking deal, right? Yeah. You bought a van. Yep. You just started living so much differently. And what's interesting was even today you sent me the photo of you went to a jiu-jitsu camp recently, right? Yeah. And last year and this year, total difference. So something happened in this last year where your flow just evolutionized, right? Yeah. Like what do you think? Was it you got really good at jiu-jitsu, right? You also really worked on your, what is it?
I think it's like all the things that we spoke before, just coming together, the self-awareness, knowing myself, you know, and just being able to like really filter through, like, you know, the interior designer metaphor, you know, to really being able to pick the gifts, so like the opinions of other people that I want to keep, push away those.
How do you deal with the things, because you have a few things, and we maybe don't want to, we'll see if we do want to talk about it, but you have a few things that your opinions are, strong on, right? Let's go with that. They're strong, right? They're firm opinions, right? That's good. And I think what's beautiful about you is that you have the confidence and the, just the firmness more than anything to just stand and be firm about them and vocalize those opinions, right? Now, obviously, that's not always met with rainbows and butterflies, right? It's not always, oh, hey, Monika, what's up, you know? Yeah. So how do you deal with the pushback from society on certain topics that you are very passionate about, right? I mean, if you want to talk about one of them, we can. If you don't, we don't have to, but it'd be interesting, I think.
No, I've been thinking about it lately. And I think it links back to the thing I told you about cherry picking my friends, you know? So if someone doesn't agree with me or if my opinions or, you know, whatever that I do doesn't agree with someone's opinions, it's fine. Like, I don't care, you know? I just don't let it impact my life. Yeah. Just, you know, quoting great Rick Sanchez, your opinions means very little. Okay. Yeah, and then I have very few but very dedicated friends, and they give me confidence that, you know, my opinions are not wrong. You know, they're just maybe not the most popular opinions, but but I'm not alone in them.
Yeah. So you think essentially, you know, one of the things I guess to maintain, right, is especially with you, because you do have you know it's you're firm on that, right? You're firm on that. That's beautiful. And so one of the things is to kind of find a group, a network of people that even if they don't match whatever, they at least support you on the opinion. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But in the beginning, when your opinion is maybe challenged, you know, I think a lot of people would start to maybe, I don't know. I'm curious to see what the thought process is. What is the thought process?
I mean, my thought process is that people have rights to different opinions. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to try to impose anything on anyone. Yeah. I might try to express my opinion once or twice. And if I see that it falls on like fertile ground, then I might, you know, pursue with it. And if not, that's fine. I mean, I'm not imposing my opinion on you. Please do not impose your opinion on me. And that's how it works. You know, it's like mutual respect and just giving everyone space for self-expression.
The space is important, I think, right? The space is important. So, okay, so when we look at you then, so your flow, right? You have this concept of the room, right? Yes. The room, understand yourself, get that down. Once you understand yourself, you can choose what you want in that room. That helps you to kind of find your flow. The way to find out what you want in that room is to experience a lot of different things. Travel, maybe, perhaps, right? People, right? You've done a lot of different sports, activities, right? So try different things, see what happens. And how do you, I guess the key thing now is, once you find your flow and once you know what you want that room to look like, right? You start working towards it. How do you maintain it? Like, what are some things that for you are very important to maintain that? Do you know what I mean? Like, once you've got it, you want to try and keep that flow, right?
Uh-huh. So I guess, again, once you know yourself, it's way easier to keep it, right? Because then the moment something feels off, you will be way better equipped to identify what is off and why is it, right? So, for example, in the last few weeks or months, I've been feeling, I wasn't feeling myself, you know? Like, I'm usually a very positive person. I don't really get angry or, you know, irritated easily. And recently I found myself just getting irritated by like the most stupid things.
Why?
And I was like, yeah, why?
What
exactly. I was like, Monika, like, that's not you.
Yeah, what is
That's
this?
what's going on.
Yeah.
And I realized it's two things, you know. One of them was that I'm going through a phase that I'm bored with the place where I live. I'm bored with Malaga. So I'm like getting triggered by that. And the other thing was that I wasn't training a lot, you know. I was avoiding training. And it really impacts very negatively just how I feel, you know. So these are these two things. So like,
sorry, what are the two things? You're training, jiu-jitsu?
Training and Malaga.
Training in Malaga.
Yes.
Well, sorry, Malaga. We live.
Yeah. So I was able to identify my like psychological states as not something. I was able to find a reason for them. I was like, it's not something, it's not like coming from me, but I know what is triggering these things, you know? And then once you find the trigger, you can adjust it. I mean, then it depends whether you're actually able to do something about it or not, but at least the awareness is like the first step, right?
So the first step when you get out of flow to get back in is sit down and just give yourself some space.
Yeah. Well,
and have awareness of what's happening.
Right. So it's like, try to question yourself, try to figure out how you're feeling, why you're feeling this way, and then whether there's something that you can do about it. Yeah, there's some adjustments that can be done. Yeah.
And do you feel that your life now is at, what level of flow are you? Is it like, do you see yourself flowing much higher? Are you...
Obviously,
you know,
I feel like there's always space for improvement. I think that's a beautiful thing about everything is like jiu-jitsu, you know, you can always improve. I mean, I don't really use the term flow with myself a lot. You know, I'm just thinking in categories of flow for the sake of today, you know. But obviously there's always something more that you can do. There's always some more limitations or inhibitions that you can remove from your life, you know. But I also feel like the fact that I'm at peace with myself, because I am, and it's like a part of being in flow, you know, is that...
You're at peace with yourself. That's very cool.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means that I'm just competing with myself, you know? I'm not really competing with anyone else. I'm not like comparing myself to anyone else. I've been thinking about it, you know, because I'm very unfazed about my failures, you know, because obviously I fail.
Unfazed about your failures.
Right.
Hashtag that.
Write it down.
Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah, tell me.
I am unfazed by my failures, and obviously everyone has failures, and I make mistakes and I fail as well. But it never seems to impact my self-confidence or my self-esteem or my self-image, and I've been thinking about it, you know, because even in jiu-jitsu, like jiu-jitsu
is an environment that consistently promotes you to fail. Right?
Yeah, but also it's a competitive sport, you know. You go and compete and you compare. So a competition is like a comparison between two people, how well their skills measure up against each other, right? But even if I fail, in my mind, I still win. And I was like thinking, how is that working? Like, how does it work, you know? And I figure that it's because I'm not comparing myself to these people. I'm just comparing myself to myself. And I'm thinking of being the best version of myself in this very moment. You know, like the very moment, this part is really crucial, you know, because there's so many variables and so many factors, but it means that in this very moment, I was the best that I could be, you know, and that's what's important.
I think that teaches you as well to live a life with no regrets.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that also means that you cannot lose. To yourself.
To yourself, yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's interesting. Yeah, if you give the best version of yourself in any given moment, then what more could you give?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, listen, look, to wrap up, is there anything, do you want to share a quote? Do you want to share an ideology? What would you like to share?
I actually prepared a quote.
Okay. Tell us your quote.
I mean, there's like way more stuff that
Monika actually came, right, with an entire flow map. And then what happened? Flow chart, guys, right? We put it on the table. Did we miss anything that you would like to talk about? Actually? There might be something in particular you'd like to talk about.
Probably. I mean, the conversation was just flowing, you know.
The conversation just flowed. I don't even know if we talked about, but I think it was beautiful. The concept of the rooms, the interior room. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think then traveling, exposing yourself to different experiences. I think like you were talking about.
I think there is an important thing here. So you were asking me how I managed to get into the state of flow, and I think an important factor in my life was that I managed to navigate around making life impacting decisions in my early life, you know, because it's easy to just, you know, live your life and do the things that you want when you have no like obligations. You have no family, you have no like, you know, things that really anchor you down in a place. And I think I'm really proud of I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I'm really proud of myself that I managed to live through my 20s without taking these like life-changing decisions, because
like getting married,
having children. Some people
getting a dog. Getting a dog would be good though.
I mean, some people might call it avoiding responsibility, but on the other hand, I feel like if now I choose to do any of these things, I would get into doing them with way more awareness, way more responsibility.
You're way more grown up. You understand yourself
and
a lot
like
more.
knowing way better what I want to do.
Amen.
You know, so being so free gave me the space to experiment, and I think this is really important. You know,
the only I totally agree, and I've lived my life the same way. And I'm thinking, what is the, I've been burnt in life many times, right? You must have been burnt a few times in life, right? We all get burnt, right? And I'm not just talking like love or romantically, but also like work or sometimes your experiences. You think something's going to be great, turns out to be shitty, right? But that is part of the deal, right? It's not always fucking rainbows and butterflies, right? So the concept of that can be quite scary, I think, right? Like you're gonna, like jiu-jitsu. Okay, I remember stepping into the room at the academy the first day. I was like, fuck, this is intense. I remember stepping onto the tatami the first time to compete. I was like, fuck, this is terrifying, right? And eventually, obviously, you deal with the fear. But in the beginning, that thought process of the fear of this is going to be a fuck up, like, because you must have those thoughts, right? At some point, something must go in your head and go, what's happening here, right? How does that work for you?
I think eventually with time, like if you fail a few times and you just realize that nothing really happens, it doesn't really change anything, it's more how you face those things, because I think we tend to exaggerate our like impact on stuff, and it's like if you fail, people are just gonna move on, so you might as well move on with that, because it's more in your head rather than other people noticing it. So it's also a matter of experience. It's like the more times you fail, the better equipped you are to fail again. It's like dealing with rejection. If you get rejected many times, then you just don't care about it anymore.
It's true, actually. It's true. Like, for example, my work is in sales business, and I've worked in that a long time, and you get so much rejection, you're constantly failing. But outside of that, for me, it's quite easy, to do something and fail, It's interesting. So what's your quote? Or is it, it's so cool, it's so awesome, right? Talk about that, right? So many different ways to do your flow, find your flow.
Yes.
But is there anything else that you would like to share or talk about? Or
no, I think we've covered more or less everything.
Yeah. Just
in one way or another.
Bing, 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 bing. Yeah. Well, quote?
There's a quote, yes, and that's actually a quote from a poem of one of the greatest poets.
Who?
Polish poets.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, until just a few days ago, I thought it was actually from a song. Until I Googled it. Okay. But there's this line that says, be your own rudder, sailor, and vessel.
Be your own
rudder, sailor, and vessel. Yes.
Very good.
Which I like because it means you are...
Be your own rudder, sail, and vessel.
Yes. Which means that you have everything that you need to do anything. You know, you don't need anything from the outside. Everything that you need, you already have.
Everything that you need, you already have.
And that's my message.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been absolutely phenomenal. We've missed. Do you want to tell that? I feel that we need to tell one or two little stories. Which Monika has so many little stories, right? What would be a little story that you would like to share?
The walnut?
The walnuts? I think the walnut is a good story, right?
I think, Mike, I think you should say it. You should tell the story.
Okay. So,
right. So that's a story of maternal instincts. This is like, I tell the story when people tell me like, oh, it's just natural for women to have maternal instincts. So
yeah, it's just natural for women to have maternal instincts. Okay, here is the potential story. So we were in a cider house, which for those of you who don't know is a factory where they make cider. And they have these huge, big barrels filled with cider. And we were there with some friends and we're having a dinner and there's drinks and we're drinking cider and there's a 3-course dinner. So you have everything. You had steak, you had starters, then you had the dessert. And when it got to dessert, they brought out cheese and nuts, wasn't it? Cheese and nuts. And we're eating the cheese and the nuts. And to crack the nuts, you have to crack them. But there was this guy sitting opposite us. He was hitting them, you know.
He was crushing them with his hands.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I sort of wanted to challenge the guy to show him that I can also crack the nuts with my hands, right? So once I crack the nuts with my hands, I figured, why don't I do it with my forehead?
Right? So then Monika begins to place this nut, right, this walnut on the table. And we're talking a table where there's, you know, you're inside this cider distillery, there's food, there's people. It's a party, right? And she just, boom, smashes her head down, opens the walnut, and we're all like, wow, that's pretty impressive, right? So we all have a go, we all do it. Monika does it again, and then this time there was like, how old was he? Maybe...
Like 7, 9,
yeah.
I don't know.
There was a 7-year-old next to Monika, right? And what did you do? You bashed your head?
Well, first I asked the kid what was his favorite cider. Because I wanted to treat him as an adult, okay?
Monika's talking to a 7-year-old, bashes her head on the table, comes up, there's still the walnut on her head.
I had a little scar.
A little scar, sees the 7-year-old and goes, what's your favourite cider? So if that's not flowing in your own flow, I don't know what is. So guys, my name's Mike, this has been Monika. Thank you so much for watching the show. Go find your flow. That's great.
Oh, yeah.